Hey everybody, it's Christy from MKP here to bring you your Talk It Out Tuesday. I apologize for the delay. I was having some audio issues, but I wanted to make sure I got this out to you because it is a very important topic. Today we are talking about personality disorders. So what is a personality disorder? Let's start with a personality. A personality is the way of thinking, feeling, and behaving that makes you different from everybody around you. When you have a personality disorder, you tend to think, behave, and feel in a way that doesn't meet societal standards. What I mean by that is it usually stays over time, and your way of behaving is erratic or possibly dangerous to the people around you. Not always. I don't want people thinking that if you have a personality disorder, you're a danger to yourself or others, but it is a possibility with a few of these if it's not managed properly. So it's always good to get checked out if you think you may have a personality disorder. Now, how do you know you have a personality disorder? Well, to start, a personality disorder, there are 10 in the DSM-5-TR. They are long-term patterns of behaviors and inner experiences that differ from what's expected. That's what I mean by societal standards. They should usually affect at least 2 of these 4 areas that I'm about to list right here. Your way of thinking of yourself or others, the way that you respond emotionally, the way that you relate to other people, and the way that you control your behavior. So if 2 of those 4 sections that I just gave you or categories are affected, you may have a personality disorder. Again, still never a bad thing as long as it's being managed. With that being said, it is divided into 3 categories. They are cluster A, B, and C. They do have little fun names that go with it to kind of help you figure out which one is which. Cluster A is also known as the odd and eccentric or the paranoid. B is known as the dramatic or erratic or emotional. And C is known as the anxious or fearful. And also avoidant is another way of saying that too. So the reason being is because of the different personality disorders. There's 3 that go with cluster A, for example. They deal a lot with paranoia. Paranoid personality disorder is the first one. It's kind of where you think that somebody is always out to get you. You're very suspicious of other people. You think that somebody's always going to share your secrets or harm or deceive you. You can't confide in others because you can't get close to them. You don't trust them. It's kind of like everything is a conspiracy theory, but they don't have a choice in that mindset. Then you have your schizoid personality disorder. Schizoid personality disorder is where you're very detached and you feel very little emotion. You express very little emotion. They typically don't seek out close relationships. They choose to be alone, and they don't really care about praise from others or even criticism is the word I was looking for, from others either. They don't really listen to any of that. You also have schizotypal personality disorder, which is a pattern of being very uncomfortable in close relationships. It's a distorted way of thinking and eccentric behavior. They usually have odd beliefs or an odd or peculiar behavior or speech and excessive social anxiety. They tend to talk very different. Their way of thinking, their brains are wired differently. All of ours are, but there's more so in a way to where you can really see it. It's not to be confused with somebody on the spectrum. That is a little bit different, but we can get into the difference of that in another episode because it's going to take longer than I have for this one. The next cluster is the antisocial and emotional section. It includes antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. These are all the emotional disorders. Borderline, I am one myself, as most of you know by now, is probably the worst of the bunch and hardest to get diagnosed with because borderline personality disorder is instability in relationships. We feel things very deeply, very intense emotions, poor self-image, and impulsivity because of that black and white way of thinking. People who have borderline personality disorder go through great lengths to keep people around if they feel that they're being abandoned. And it's a perceived abandonment. It's not usually realistic. It's just what they think, what we think. There's also that explosive anger because, again, those emotions are felt very intensely, but also feelings of emptiness and suicidal tendencies. If you or someone you know has borderline personality disorder and you think they may be showing signs of suicidal ideation, it is definitely time to call someone or step in. If a borderline says that they are feeling suicidal or they start showing signs, 9 out of 10 times they will make an attempt. The mean or average number of times that a borderline will try to commit suicide in their lifetime is 3. Just as a little side note. You also have antisocial personality disorder, which is a pattern of disregarding or violating people's boundaries and rights. Usually they can't conform to social norms and they lie or deceive a lot and act impulsively. They intentionally lie and do things like that and violate your boundaries. Like I said, they're just not really good with social situations. Then you also have histrionic personality disorder. This is someone who needs attention all of the time. It's excessive. They're usually uncomfortable when they're not the center of attention, and they will change their physical appearance a lot or use their physical appearance to get that attention back because they need to be the star of the show all of the time, all the time. Then you also have narcissistic personality disorder, which is not to be confused with narcissism. They are two very different things. Narcissistic personality disorder is a need for admiration and a lack of empathy. That's what makes it different from narcissism. A person with narcissistic personality disorder has like a grandiose sense of self-importance, like they are the king of the world and you are nothing. And they also have a sense of entitlement and they take advantage of others a lot, but they don't feel sorry because they're not capable of empathy. They're not capable of feeling that way. For example, if you're crying your eyes out, somebody with narcissistic personality disorder probably just look at you like you're crazy because they don't know how to handle that situation socially. Next on that cluster would be cluster C, which is really just the anxious cluster. It's really people who have trouble and avoid social situations because they're not very good at them to begin with. So with that being said, in cluster C, we have avoidant personality disorder, dependent personality disorder, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. To start, avoidant personality disorder is kind of just like it sounds: extreme shyness, fearing they're inadequate in every way, and very sensitive to criticism. They don't get involved with people unless they are absolutely sure that you like them. They cannot take the risk of you rejecting them in any way because it will affect them very harshly. They get very preoccupied with criticism or rejection because they already think that they're not good enough for whatever the situation is. They go into it thinking that they are a 4 out of 10, but in reality, they were a 10 out of 10 the entire time. Next, we have that, sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. Next, we have that dependent personality disorder. With this is a person who literally needs someone to take care of them. They have an irrational fear that if they're left alone, they will not be able to take care of themselves. So they are heavily dependent on someone else in a very submissive way. They are terrified, like I said, of being left alone. They feel uncomfortable or helpless because of their inability to take care of themselves. They're very clingy. So they have difficulty making decisions without approval first or without somebody's opinion. And you also have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. This is not to be confused with obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD. OCD more falls on intrusive thoughts and repetitive patterns and behaviors, whereas obsessive compulsive personality disorder is a preoccupation with orderliness, perfection, and control. It's like talking to a brick wall. They do not have any kind of indication that they want to listen to you. They're overly focused on details and schedules. They work a lot. They're the ones you never see. They don't make time for their friends. And they're very inflexible in their morality and values. Like I said, brick wall. Very hard to talk to. Very hard to deal with in those kind of situations. There is also PDNOS, which is a personality disorder not otherwise specified. It's where you show traits of and fall into the category of a personality disorder, but they don't quite know where you fit in, or you don't fit in any one category. You may have some symptoms of all of them. Some ways that you can get treatment. I'm going to put my little tab up here. Some ways that you can get treatment for this, it really varies. It stems from psychoanalytic or psychodynamic, transference focused therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, cognitive behavior therapy. Group therapy is a great choice, I always feel. For anybody who has a mental health condition, maybe like mine, which is borderline, we have a lot of trouble with one-on-one therapy. It's always best to maybe try group therapy instead. You also have psychoeducation, which is teaching you and your family members about your condition so that you all can better exist, and also ways of coping so that you don't get triggered and things like that. Now, other than that, there is other ways that you can learn to cope with your symptoms. There are no like specific medications that they can give out for personality disorders just because of the broad range, but usually they would give out like an antidepressant or anti-anxiety med. A mood stabilizer is usually number one in the book, and that's for the more severe or long-lasting. In addition to coping mechanisms like using those therapy choices, you can also use these little fun tools. Number one, learn about your condition. It's number one. I tell people that all the time. It's important. Learn about your condition. Sit with your family if they want to sit and, do it with you. It's always encouraged to do that. Just again, so that they can help you and also support you and not trigger you. Because then it might become toxic for you to be around them. Learning about your condition can empower and motivate you to do better. Also, getting active. In every single interview I've done, they always mention a coping mechanism in the form of exercise, because when your body is moving, your mind is not. Next, I think this one should be obvious, but for most of us who have a mental health condition, it's the first place we go: drugs and alcohol. You are not going to get rid of the problem or manage your symptoms if you are using drugs and alcohol as a baseline. They can actually worsen your symptoms or be counterproductive with your medications. And if you are using drugs and alcohol, definitely seek help. If you're on medications for mental health issues and you're still doing drugs and alcohol on the side, please be honest with your doctor. They are on your team, they are on your side, and they will get you the help that you need, or maybe a different medication, because it can be very dangerous. You can die from doing that. So make sure if you're using drugs and alcohol that you make a plan to get better. Next is to get routine medical care. Stop ghosting your doctor. If you can't see a therapist, it's always good to at least go get a checkup from your regular doctor or a mental health physician to make sure that everything is on the up and up. If you have a personality disorder, unchecked personality disorders can be very dangerous, not only to yourself, but sometimes to the people around you with the erratic and impulsive behaviors. For example, borderlines most of the time have explosive anger. You need to learn to manage that so that you don't blast on people or split, as they call it, when you get upset. Next is to write in a journal. As you guys know, I mention it every Talk It Out Tuesday. I'll mention it again. Write it out. Write how you're feeling out on a piece of paper, because 9 out of 10 times you're basing your reaction on emotion. Emotions are temporary visitors. They are not what you're supposed to use to make decisions or conversations on things. Sit and write it out. Might give you a different perspective on how you're feeling in that moment. Maybe 10 minutes later when you go and look at it, you'll think, I'm glad I didn't send that 10-paragraph long message. Writing it out will give you a chance to really think about the message you're trying to convey when you give a response. So important. And it also helps you kind of decipher how you're feeling and why. It helps you analyze your triggers. Why does this trigger me? You have to find the root of the issue in order to fix it. So it's like your own self-therapy. Beyond that, sorry, I dropped something. You can also try relaxation and stress management in the form of yoga or meditation, things like that. Also stay connected with family and friends. It's very important when you have a personality disorder, and this is probably the hardest one for all of us, is to not isolate yourself. We tend to isolate ourselves because, number one, shame and embarrassment. If we don't act the right way, or we don't fit into normal societal or social situations, we feel like the the odd one out. We feel uncomfortable because a lot of the times we don't know how to respond to certain social situations that other people have no problems with. So make sure you don't isolate yourself, even if it's doing a podcast, even if it's just a phone call. Make sure you're staying connected with people and make sure you're being honest, not only to yourself, but to whoever you feel comfortable with about what's going on for you. Family members and friends are probably the most important part of recovery for anybody with a mental health condition or a personality disorder. Support is so important because with support, we feel motivated to get better, to manage our symptoms. When we are cast off or alienated, or blacklisted for the way that we behave sometimes, even though, yes, sometimes our behaviors are not that great. Case in point, again, I'm a borderline. I know all about it. I have a black and white way of thinking. You're either the hero or the villain. You're either like a god to me or you must die. When I split like that, it gets pretty severe. And we have to remember, for those of us who have mental health conditions, that our behaviors affect the people around us. And a lot of the times, we have things to apologize for. The problem is we expect one back, and that's not always the case. So, with that being said, remember to take into consideration the feelings of the people around you, whether or not you have a personality disorder, but also treat people with kindness because you never know what they're going through. And you never know how their brain is wired and how it may be different from yours. So this has been another Talk It Out Tuesday. I am going to put up a calendar for you guys. It is up on our pages and up on the website, but I also want to leave it up here for a few minutes for those of you who haven't seen it, so you can see the upcoming interviews that we have and also the next topics for Talk It Out Tuesday. So thanks for joining. My name's Christy, and I will see you on the next one.